1 month with M1 iPad Pro. What's up guys, this is your iPadPro. Thank you for dropping by and welcome to another video. It's been exactly a month since the release of Apple's latest and greatest version of the iPad Pro, the first iPad to carry the new M series of processors and saying goodbye to the A series of chips. It's also the first iPad to have 16 gigs of RAM and the first, at least for the 12.9-inch ones, to have mini LED display technology. How's it holding up after a month? Well, long story short, it's a keeper. But if you want to learn more, stick around for the rest of this video. Okay, so regardless of everything that happened or didn't happen at WWDC, I'm one of those people who decided to keep their M1 iPad Pro. Because why not? I waited 4 years before doing an upgrade. I know I'm still going to need all the power that I can get, and I'm also looking forward to better days ahead in regards to iPadOS and more Pro apps for the iPad Pro. If anything's missing, I can wait. A few things have changed since I got the new M1 iPad Pro, and the first and biggest change is I actually returned my original purchase. I originally bought a space gray 512 gig the day it came out. 3 days later, I replaced that with a silver 1TB with 16 gigs of RAM. I just kept thinking to myself that it will be another 4 years, maybe even more, until I find the need to upgrade again. So if I plan to use the iPad for that long, I have to make sure it won't fall short. I was mainly just using Procreate before, but I had plans to do more video editing and motion graphics on the iPad Pro. Doubling storage from 512 gigs to a terabyte was a good move because at 9 videos in for this channel, I'm already halfway through it. Mostly because of all the 4K footage I shoot. The extra storage is also great because I can keep more downloaded movies, which are always useful when you have a kid asking for Sound of Music or Sesame Street every now and then. If you're still thinking about purchasing or upgrading to the new M1 iPad Pros, I suggest coughing up the extra dough only if you really need the space, because backing up a 1TB iPad is no joke. Your cloud storage or desktop PC is going to take a hit every time you back up, so take that into consideration as well. The additional 16 gigs of RAM is a very welcome bonus with the 1TB as well, because working in LumaFusion with 4K footage, large images, effects on top of that, as well as renders from a light motion, I've actually felt the iPad slow down and lag during a few occasions. That, along with Procreate, which can even take the iPad Pro to around 40 degrees Celsius, really pushes the iPad to its limits. Yes guys, the M1 iPad Pros, despite having the latest chips and is overpowered for the form factor, can be pushed enough to a point where you will feel that it's still not the end game of iPad Pros. I mean, just look at the Apple Pencil too. Sure, there's some advantages to the old one that charges over the Lightning port, but this accessory is still far from perfect. I actually prefer the fully cylindrical design, the glossy finish, and the weight and length of the first Apple Pencil. Though the charging magnetically is really cool, I've seen up close how that eventually wears the paint down on the Apple Pencil too, and it doesn't look good. Because of this, I don't keep the Apple Pencil on the iPad all the time. The touch feature in the Apple Pencil is also a bummer. It's too sensitive for me, and I always accidentally toggle or change my tool in Procreate. The transition of using the pencil, then using your finger, is usually when I accidentally toggle it. I just left it off because I was really losing a lot of time redoing things in Procreate. I really hope the next design has physical buttons and the second tip, which can be used like an eraser, much like a Wacom pen tablet. The old Wacom stylus was actually perfect, aside from the fact that it was a fat stylus. But hey, that thing was great in the early days of Procreate and the pre-iPad Pro era. So far, my Apple Pencil tip has been used and seasoned enough to glide smoothly on the glass screen. And no, I don't use paper-like, nor do I have plans to do so. If you want a drawing experience like paper, just draw on paper. Another thing that happened during the course of the first month was that I finally gave in to getting a Magic Keyboard. For the first couple of weeks of getting the M1, I was trying to haggle my way in getting a second-hand folio keyboard for less than $100. But the seller was not having it. The folio keyboard I had for my old 10.5-inch didn't last too long, and I just didn't want to pay full price for a new folio keyboard because I don't really like that the keys are at the back when folded up compared to the older design, and my only color option is black. I really wanted to get a white keyboard because I really love the material on the white folio case that I already had. So yeah, 2 weeks in, I went back to the Apple store, spent over an hour trying the keyboard, went home, went back in the evening, and finally pulled the trigger. Getting approved for an Apple Card also made it an easier decision to get because of financing too. For a really expensive keyboard, I must say it's worth it, especially if you have a year to pay for it. The best thing about it is the familiar feel. My only other Apple device is an old 2013 MacBook Pro, so the keyboard feel is basically the same. I'm not that afraid to get it dirty, but I am scared of scratching it or getting a deep gash on it or something. AppleCare also takes care of anything accidental that may occur, so at least I'm covered on that. But honestly, if there was a folio keyboard in white, I would have probably grabbed that one. The trackpad really is the last thing I want out of the keyboard anyway, because even with the Magic Keyboard, there are a lot of things that are still more intuitive and better to do by actually touching the screen. It is an iPad after all. Also, a little something about the Apple Card and being an iPad user without an iPhone, I couldn't buy using the Wallet app in store. I had to buy it online and choose the pickup option. That and not being able to have an Apple Watch are just some of the inconveniences an iPad user has. The iPad Pro M1 is definitely a keeper. I hope it would last me as long, if not longer, than my last iPad Pro. Despite all the shortcomings with the OS, all the Pro apps that are no match for the desktop alternatives, and the expensive accessories, I'm willing to look past that and instead look at its bright future. Up to 1200 nits of brightness if you got the 12.9 version too. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching this video. This is your iPad Bro talking about anything and everything about the iPad Pro. If you like this video, click the like button, and if you want to see more, click subscribe. See you guys. Bye!